Let's talk about a word that gets thrown around all the time, especially in business, that can feel, well, a little intimidating. Strategy. What does it actually mean? It turns out the answer is way simpler than you might think.
And isn't that the truth? So many of us have this idea that strategy is this complex, secret language that's only for CEOs and senior executives, that you need an MBA and decades of experience to even get it.
Yeah, no, that is complete nonsense. I'm telling you, at its very core, strategy is an incredibly simple, powerful idea that anybody can understand and use. Okay, let's dive into this.
So here's what we're going to cover. First, we're going to bust the biggest myth about strategy. Then, I'll introduce you to a really powerful way to think about it. We'll look at the only two moves that really matter, see how they brought a huge company back from the brink, and then we'll wrap it all up with the one big idea you should take away from all this. Okay, so the number one myth we have to bust is that strategy is all about financials. Profits, stock price, all that stuff. But here's the thing. Those are the results. They're the scoreboard at the end of the game. They tell you what already happened. A real strategy, that's your game plan for the future. It's how you're going to win the game in the first place.
So, if strategy is about winning, how do we keep score? Well, we're going to use this brilliantly simple tool called the value stick. Forget the complicated spreadsheets for a second. This one visual idea helps us see all the value a company creates and who it's for: the customers, the employees, everyone. And here's the core of it all. The total value that gets created is just the gap between the absolute most a customer would ever pay for something and the absolute least an employee or supplier would accept to do their part. The bigger that gap, the better you're doing. So let's really break this down. Picture a stick, right? At the very, very top is your customer's willingness to pay, or WTP. And at the very bottom is your supplier's or employee's willingness to sell, WTS. The entire length of that stick, from top to bottom, is the total value created. That value then gets split up between the customer, the company, and the people who work there. Let's make this real. Think about your morning coffee. For me, that first cup, it's absolutely essential. My willingness to pay is probably like $7. Easy. But Dunkin' only charges me $2. That $5 difference between what I would have paid and what I actually paid, that is value created just for me. You can call it customer delight. Now, willingness to sell, that's a little trickier, but it's just as important. It's the rock bottom number an employee would accept to do a job. You offer them 1 penny less and they walk. But it's not just about salary, right? It's the whole package. Is the job interesting? Is it flexible? Is it a good place to work? All of that plays into their WTS.
Okay, so if the whole point of strategy is to make that value stick as long as you possibly can, how do you do it? Well, it turns out there are really only two moves you can make, two levers you can pull.
And here they are. First, you can pull the top of the stick up. You increase your customer's willingness to pay by making your product better or offering other things that go with it. Or second, you can push the bottom of the stick down. You do that by lowering the willingness to sell, basically by becoming a better place to work or a better company to partner with.
Now, this right here is a really important distinction. You might think, oh, I'll just pay my employees more. But think about it. That doesn't create new value. That's just re-slicing the same pie, moving money from the company's slice over to the employee's slice. But if you make the job itself better, more fulfilling, more flexible, their willingness to sell actually goes down. And that move makes the whole stick longer. It creates brand new value for everybody.
Okay, so theory is one thing, but let's see how this actually works in the real world. And for that, we have to talk about the incredible turnaround of Best Buy, the company that everyone, and I mean everyone, thought was toast.
I mean, seriously, this was the question a decade ago. How could a company with 1,000 massive, expensive physical stores possibly compete against Amazon? It looked like an open and shut case. It seemed impossible.
And the situation was absolutely dire. We're not talking about a small downturn here. They were losing $1 billion, $1 billion, in a single 3-month period. The company was literally on the verge of disappearing.
So, a new CEO comes in with a plan that is just a perfect example of our framework. First, he pulled that top lever. He increased customer willingness to pay by turning his stores into local warehouses, which meant they could often ship things faster than Amazon. Genius. Then, he pushed the bottom lever down for his suppliers, offering brands like Samsung a store within a store. And he did the same for his employees, making their jobs better by turning them into highly trained experts. So what happened? The result was amazing. The company went from losing $1 billion to generating a return on invested capital of over 20%. Just an unbelievable comeback. And it was all driven by this simple, powerful focus on creating more value.
So what's the big lesson here? After all of this, what's the one thing we should take away that applies to us, not just giant companies?
This is it. This is the whole game. So much of business is spent fighting over who gets the biggest slice of the pie. A real strategist knows the first job is just to make the pie bigger. Create more value for your customers, for your colleagues, for your partners. When the whole pie is bigger, there's more for everyone anyway.
And that really leaves us with a question. This isn't just for CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. Think about your own job, your own team, your own projects. Where can you apply this? How can you increase the willingness to pay for what you do, or decrease the willingness to sell for the people you work with? That right there, that is the simple, powerful heart of real strategy.